Hi there and welcome back to my channel. This book today is a memoir, Dirtbag Queen by Andy Corren, a memoir of my mother. Hi, Grimmy. When Andy Corren's mother died, he wrote a no-holds-barred, painfully honest obituary for her, which really struck readers and ended up going viral, reaching people all over the world and getting strong reactions, both positive and negative. Thus, this memoir was born, a memoir of his mother, both a celebration and a denigration, and the story of his growing up, the youngest in a family of 6 in the 70s and 80s in Fayetteville, North Carolina. It's a warts and all, brash and honest story of hardscrabble life, a dysfunctional family, and the woman at the center of it all who was vibrant and vital, but also could be a grifter and a gambler, and who meant the world to young Andy Corren. This is Andy Corren's first book. After reading this, I can't help but feel that his mother, Renay, would have been both proud that he wrote it and also proud that it's all about her. He is a playwright and performer and a self-styled first-generation Jewish redneck. The book is in long, loose, flowing chapters that bracket the different seasons of his life, and then within the chapters, they're sort of broken up into small subchapters. I haven't read the obituary that spawned this book. I was drawn to it because I love reading about weird and sort of wild women like this. They're not always pleasant to live with, but they live interesting lives. I was drawn to the sense of humor and honesty of writing about someone you love, but not eulogizing them or erasing the ugly parts of life. I also think that reading about the more earthy, chaotic lives around us can be cathartic, knowing that we're not the only ones who go through this truly chaotic stuff and survive, and also the outlook of you'd have to laugh or you'd cry. This book is a little darker than I was expecting, but not in a bad way. The author has a wonderful tone, managing to talk easily about the darker things, poke fun at himself and his family, and has an amusing turn of phrase. Because of this, a book that could have been, a plea for sympathy or just straight up depressing becomes a story about a scrappy, tough but loving gay Jewish boy growing up in the real world, where life can be hard but also funny, and his mother, who he loves, who can also be hard but funny. I really liked how, at the point of writing this book, he sees his life through adult eyes, recognizing now aspects of things he couldn't see at the time. With age has come wisdom and a wry self-knowledge. I really liked Andy Corren as I read this book. He's able to tell a good yarn. He and his story reminded me a lot of people I went to high school with, and I love reading books that are something a bit different, maybe a voice from the other side of the tracks, but without descending into sort of misery porn. Though it's definitely the story of a downward spiral as they slowly move down the ladder into less and less reputable and safe places and neighborhoods, and Renay seems to spiral into greater absence and neglect of her brood, and I think perhaps an addiction of some kind, I'm not sure. While I really liked this book, I do think it may divide readers a little bit. I can see some people really not liking some of this, sort of not being couched as trauma or that kind of thing, or the complexity of Renay as a mother figure, being a woman who is much loved, but also not really a great parent, shall we say. The author has found peace with this, but sometimes people like a neat line between the good guys and the bad. Some people also don't like gallows humor or some of the more graphic sides of life. So I think from sort of telling you this, you'll know if this book is for you. Andy Corren talks about growing up reading V.C. Andrews, Jackie Collins, and Judith Krantz, along with his mom, which I know some of you will kind of relate to that, like sharing those books, enjoying those books. And I feel like this is kind of cool because it's influenced his slightly dramatic, gossipy, maybe sort of oversharing style in a really nice way. It's very kind of juicy gossip sometimes, this book. It's not a perfect read. Sometimes the book felt a little elliptical, repeating some things about Renay's personality or traits of her life, and sometimes looping back in time in a way that sort of repeated information a little bit. I think this is just part of the way that Corren writes, but I felt like it could have done with a little extra edit here and there. It's a slightly waffly way of telling a story. So yeah, it could have just been tightened up a little bit, I think. There are moments that are a little confusing and left me a little bit unsure what they meant, like maybe a little glossed over. For example, there's not a great deal that we learn about Andy's father, that he's persona non grata, and some bare facts, though we get a few more details later in the book, but he's sort of never fleshed out. And the most obvious one that really struck me was there's a brother known as Bonus in this book who seems very enigmatic. His story is pretty shocking. He's sent away at age 6 to some kind of home for like the mentally ill. That is so young. And he's apparently in and out of places like that, like places for the criminally insane and things like that. But we never get a description of like what happened, why his mother just hated him and chose to forget about him, why all the members of the family act like he doesn't exist. Like that's pretty huge. And we never get even why an institution would take him in, or what the, even if the diagnosis is incorrect, what that is, you know? So into this, Corren lets us know that his brother was not mentally ill and didn't belong in those places. But then that's it. Like, that's kind of all. So it's very mysterious a little bit. And I felt like leaving him out entirely may have been better than half telling his story. Maybe. Also, I think the last chapter could be edited, like specifically to not be so long. It's something that could have been told in a few pages. It details the last few days of his mother's life. And I just think less would be more poignant here. So, you know, not a perfect book, but that's fine. Either way, I actually really like this book, and I hope that this author writes more. I think I kind of have a soft spot for him now after reading this, because the book reads like he's telling a story to a friend. And I think that really, for me, like, it just made me like him. He feels very honest, a little bit vulnerable, but not vulnerable. I don't think he would care what you think. So it's like sharing the vulnerable aspects of life, but also, you know, a lot of quiet strength in Andy Corren. He has a unique voice that comes across really well as well, actually, like a really nice turn of phrase. You kind of, it's very much him telling this story. And I really like that voice was captured. Yeah, this book is funny and sad. Sometimes it's emotional. It's not always an easy read because life isn't always easy or pretty, but it's really life affirming in some ways as well, because we do survive the messiness of life, even when that goes on for a long time. And so often we love the complicated people who shape us. So I do have one question for Andy Corren, though. At one point in this book, he talks about collecting TV guides and that he kept them all neat and pristine and moved them from house to house as the family moved. I really want to know if he still has that TV guide collection. It's not like it's a major plot point in the story or anything. I'm just really curious about that. So this one is for you it's an all too real portrait of a beloved mother and a disaster. A woman on a downward spiral, and the youngest son who loved her and was shaped by her. It's funny, dark, sad, and salty. So I think I feel like some people are just going to absolutely love this book, and I did. It's not perfect, but it works really well. But I do think some of you might not, enjoy that kind of darkness or that kind of thing, and that's also totally fine. Just a matter of taste, I think. So yeah, I wanted to thank Hachette Canada, who sent me the lovely ARC of this book for a review. And thank you guys for watching and joining me. If you've read this book and you loved or hated it, please let me know. I'm really curious about what you guys think of it, because it could be divisive, or it might be that everybody loves it. I'm not sure. And yeah, I mean, I know some of you guys grew up reading V.C. Andrews, and it was formulaic, like a life-forming experience for some of us or some of you. But did you guys read Judith Krantz, Barbara Cartland? Who else did I mention here? Jackie Collins. I've never really reviewed any of those books, but I mean, they're kind of part of the cultural zeitgeist of that era. And yeah, I'd be interested to see if any of you guys kind of remember those. Or the other one that kind of came up in the book was that kind of tell-all biography written by the children of famous people, like Mommy Dearest, that was about Joan Crawford, and it kind of exposed the other side of her that the public didn't see, and it's written by her daughter, and that was huge when that came out. And it is, I mean, if you haven't read it, it's either like going to be for you or not. It's very sort of gossipy, but also that little girl went through a lot. So there's quite a few, I think that kind of spawned a genre of that kind of book. And those were really big in this time period. So I'd be really curious if you guys have read any of those that kind of had an impact on you, especially if you were a little bit younger. I feel like sometimes when you read some of those things when you're a little bit younger, they kind of form how you see life a little bit. But anyway, that is Dirtbag Queen by Andy Corren. And thank you for hanging out with me and watching, and I will chat with you guys in the comments. Have a great day. You can check out some of my other videos. I also have another channel and socials, so you can find links below if you want more of that. And if you want to hang out again, remember to like and subscribe. And you can always leave a comment, let me know what you thought, or let me know what else you might want to see. Thank you.